Okay, Zoom is telling us that we are ready to record and to start the conversation. So again, very warm welcome to another episode of Fauza's Diary. If you are looking for something little and yet inspiring, then you have stumbled upon the right show. That's the beauty about my diaries. They inspire us, they encourage us, but also they make us think and see what other opportunities are out there and what can we do to solve the issues in our community. Joining me today on this particular conversation is an amazing woman. She's doing a lot of amazing things, and I am so honored and I am so thankful that she said yes to do this conversation with me. She's joining me all the way from my second home country, the Netherlands, INGUN, BOL. I want you to introduce yourself because you are sitting on different platforms, and I think it will be much more interesting when it comes direct from you. Welcome to Fauza's Diaries, INGUN.
Thank you, Fauza, and I'm really happy that you asked me and that I have an opportunity to share my story and love to inspire people. So thank you so much. Yes, who am I? First of all, I'm a 61-year-old woman, mother of two beautiful daughters, and the grandmother of one grandson and one on the way. So that's really exciting. I'm happily married with Peter already for many, many years. I'm not even going to mention that. But yes, I'm a very entrepreneurial woman. I have a engineering background. So the first 20 years of my career, I worked in the IT business, did all the things, the glass ceiling, the fitting in, everything that you can imagine there. But it just didn't make me happy. And on the way, I realized more and more that I was the one who had to step out, that it was the very masculine environment that I was struggling with. And so decided to step out 20 years ago already and started my own business. And have been my own boss since then. Right now, my most important activities are I'm the founder and president of Female Wave of Change, a global movement to inspire women to step into their authentic feminine leadership and be the change. And I'm the founder and CEO of a company, Move into the Future, that has just launched an online platform for the 50 plus generation, the Wise Move Society.
Wow. That is so amazing. You have done so much, INGUN. And I also actually want to take this opportunity to actually say that one of the other things that INGUN does is through Female Wave of Change is they, as an organization, they do a leadership training, which I am a part of at this moment. And I tell you, I actually want to encourage other leaders, women entrepreneurs, to take advantage and join this training because I tell you, I am learning a lot, and knowledge is power. You don't just have enough of it, is it? So that is so powerful. And INGUN, you have done quite a lot. Amazing things. Really, you've done advising corporates, organizing organizations to building bridges between many organizations. Even before you said, okay, I'm gonna draw the line. I'm gonna take this this plunge. I'm gonna move on my own. Mm-hmm. And then here we are today. You are now on a journey to empower men and women, with your organizations and, Female Wave of Change, like I said, move into the future for the 50 plus generation who they actually, sometimes it's easy to give up. You're like, oh, I'm almost retiring. What else is out there for me? But you have said in your 60, you just launched a new organization. Mm-hmm. What was your why?
What was my why? Well, first of all, and that is something we see people do a lot is they always talk about what has happened. You know, they talk
Mm.
about their past. I was so good in this, or I was so good in that. And what I'm actually always interested in is, how good are you going to be? You know, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Because that is much more interesting with
Mhm.
than look at the past, look at the rear view mirror, because you know your future is ahead of you. And
Mhm.
what are you going to do to really make change happen? Because I really do believe, and that is also my why.
Mm.
um, I think for many years I have been living in a way that I see many people, you know, men and women do they try to fit in. And I think this is something that society teaches you, and education teaches you even. You know, you have to fit in, you have to be part of that box, or part of that
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
And for me, somewhere on the road, I felt like, you know, by fitting in, I was not really contributing. I was not really being the change. And I saw so many things that needed change, that I really thought I really need to step in. For me, the why behind Female Wave of Change was actually that I saw that we live in this world of change,
Mhm.
rapid change. It's exponential, and that many women were not really aware, not paying attention. And for me, it was important to create that awareness, that creates that feeling of responsibility, of readiness, uh, and that I really believe that we were not heading in the right direction. Change was not heading in the right direction. And I do believe that we need a different approach. So I do believe that we need our feminine values, our feminine energy to change the direction of, you know, where we were heading. And also more and more the belief that we needed to still create a legacy for the next generations. And you know, if you look at what I'm doing right now with Moving to the Future, it's not that different, because I'm still having that vision of,
Mhm.
we need to do something about the future. We need to step in. We need to take responsibility, not
Mhm.
sit back and wait, but really be active and do whatever
Mhm.
we can. For me, the drive for the 50 plus generation was because I saw a lot of men and women in my own environment, but also around the world, that were getting stuck in their 50s, you know, and not really knowing what to do when they lost their job or lost their business, and getting confused about who am I, and what can I really contribute. No one
Yeah.
is waiting for me. What is the next step? And whether they did have or not had a job or a business, I had this feeling of, okay, come on, let's do that next step. What do you really want out of life? How can you contribute? How can you build a meaningful life? How can you still add value to whatever is happening in the world, and really creating that impact? So, especially for that 50 plus generation, I believed I needed to do something. And why is that urge so important? Why is it so important to really work with that generation? Because that group of people, 50 plus and older, is getting bigger and bigger. If we don't act now, we're really heading towards, well, I don't like to really call it problems, but yes, we will have issues in the near future if we don't act now. Many of the people in this generation don't have built enough retirement funds to really retire at 65, you know, and now the predictions are already that people will need to be working until age 75. And your generation, Fauza, will probably even need to work harder, because you will even become older than my generation. So it is a mindset that
Yeah.
people are aware that that whole thing about retirement at 65, that is over. So if you are right now, I was talking to someone yesterday who is 54, and I said, well, you probably need to work another 20 years. So don't think about, you know, when do I retire? It is about, no, I have another 20 years work, and I
Yeah.
have another maybe 40 years to live. So what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And of course, you know, it is not that different, female wave of change and move into the future. I am Ingun. I'm still having the same vision. I'm still wanting to contribute to that legacy, want to contribute to change this world into a better place for each and everyone. And, you know, that, well, you hear my drive. It's very passionate. And that
Yeah.
is also what keeps me going. You know, I'm 61. My father retired when he was 58. He had before that very important jobs. You know, he was in the executive level of an American company. He did nothing again after 58. Nothing. And I cannot imagine, you know, uh, just trying to fill my days with,
Yeah,
well,
we're doing nothing.
what, yes, with playing with my grandchildren and or golf or whatever, making long walks. That is what I like. But it does feel for me a little bit empty. So for me, I really need to do something. And I even feel it's not going to be the last company that I started. So
Go, Ingun.
yeah, this is something that is in my, I think in my DNA, and that is surprising because I do not come from an entrepreneurial family. But
Okay.
I do believe that somewhere in my DNA, a lot of things have happened, and that is what I'm building on.
But I love what you're saying. It's, and the example you've given of Papa that after 58, he retired and then what else, sitting down and watching news and doing golfing and meeting friends in the coffee shops. And there will be a time where it becomes a bit monotonous and boring. And then what else? What is there for you? So I love what you're saying that, it's not going female wave of change and moving to the future. It's not just, it might not be even the last company for you. And by the way, Ingon, I think I've told you this before. You look fantastic in 61. Like I want to be
Thank you.
61 and look so beautiful like you. You look amazing, Ingon. And I think the approach that you have, to encourage, to give someone else a nudge, not just to stop dreaming and limit themselves because of their age, I think that is so powerful. But I have a question which I want to throw in here. Do you feel that that 50 plus generation, right? That when they reach to certain age, they just want to there is a way of a limitation. Do you think it's because of the system, our system globally? Because we are talking of a global issue. It's not just in the Netherlands or in Kenya, or this is something that it actually happens everywhere. Now, in the Netherlands, right, there is a little bit of a system. In many countries, there are people who they retire. Like I'll give an example. In Kenya, sometimes children are the ones who end up taking care of their own parents after their retirement, Ingo. So it
Mhm.
becomes a responsibility for the children to care for their parents. So do you feel there is a situation or a problem with the system, not just in the Netherlands, but let's talk about global, because I know you deal with, you are global, you are a global business woman.
Mhm.
What would you say?
Well, I absolutely think that if we don't create this awareness and we don't get people on their feet, then probably our children will have to look after us.
Right.
Because, and that is, I was reading an article last week, and that was about the 50 plus generation, and I think it was about the United States, but it's not that much different from other countries. Only 17% of the people in their 50s believe they have enough retirement funds at 65. 17%. This means, well, mostly this is overrated. You know, people have no idea if it's enough or not enough. They feel like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I think I've built some retirement money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's still it's high. So, but this means that 83% of the people do not believe that they do have enough retirement fund. So if they do not get active, if they do not be engaged in a work life in any way and become financially independent, you know what we always talk about with women, but we have to get that older generation also financially independent and economically stable,
Yeah.
to be able to pay for their own retirement. Otherwise, your generation will have to pay for it. So we do have an issue there. Yeah. And it is a worldwide issue. You know, I've been talking with so many people now from all over the globe. But it is, you know, is it just the mindset of the 50 plus generation? No, I think it is also, you know, what I see in society. And that is something we talk about a lot now on our in our community, the Wise Move Society. Is what is happening. What do we see happening? There is a lot of ageism. You know, there is society a lot of discrimination on aging. In companies, if you look at, many people get stuck after their 50s. Not all, but many people do. You know, there's this whole thing of, you know, how do I cope? There's all these generations on the
Yeah.
workplace. So how do you cope? Um, but in a lot of corporate environments, they are seen as on their way out and not as part of the future. But if you are 50, you still have what I mentioned, 20 years to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the corporates and governments, education, it's all bigger companies. They have to be aware that if they let go that generation, no one will step into
Yeah.
those days of knowledge and wisdom.
Absolutely.
So they really need them. So they really have to. So also these organizations will have to act differently, like what's happening with women. You know, embrace diversity. You know, that inclusive way of thinking. Whether we talk about women or whether we talk about that 50 plus generation, it's the same discussion. But we do need to be aware what is happening. So it is partly about what is happening in the mindset of that generation and how we can move forward and really get them that mindset opening up to, what do I want, what are my talents, what is my purpose, what is my passion, what do I want out of life, but also in those organizations that they really start looking at them as how can we work with this group and how can we educate that, because you know a lot of the training money in bigger organizations is spent on the younger ones, and that is good,
Yes.
that's fantastic, but please do not forget those 50 plus, because if they still have to work
To
for 10,
contribute. Yeah.
they need to be educated, they need to be trained, and that money will be really really well spent. So there's a lot of influences that you can see. We have to look at what is happening in society. We have to change that mindset on, they're too old. But you know, what do you talk, too old, too thin, too less
Yeah, there is
educated?
always
There's
two of
always a
something.
reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's always two of something.
There
Yeah.
is always a two of something. But I absolutely love what you said, Ingun. And here's my point as well. I love this conversation, Ingun. I think the reason why that is happening, there is an article that I also read, because I just got curious with it was a research. Yeah, it was actually a research. And the issue comes is the younger generation, they are hype, they are innovative, well, they have a different drive on how they see things. But my argument is also the fact that the elder generation have accumulated a wealth of knowledge, and when we look back, right, when you were in uni, we didn't have the technology that we had. So can you imagine what you had to draw, as an IT profession back then? It's totally different than now. Now we are just doing quick fixes, isn't it? Quick fixes because we have a problem, let's solve it now and let's move on. And at the end of the day, it's just the profit and the numbers, isn't it? So that is a very good point that you've really spoken about, the 50 plus generation. They are needed because I feel they have much more wealth of knowledge and they are wise. Okay, I'm not saying the younger
Yes, there
generation, they are
was-
not,
there-
but
yeah.
it also comes, it's like what we say, age, age comes, wiseness comes with age and maturity and all that. It's good. But again, I think the younger generation, they will be paid less compared to someone like you who has accumulated all this wealth, because your CV, it's very broad and it means a bigger check. So if there is a younger one here who, they just want to have the job, that's when, the younger generation get more chance because the salaries are also a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what you see now a lot, if you talk about salaries, a lot of that 50 plus generation, they do not have to pay any more for the education of the children.
Yeah.
The children they've left the house. So many of what you see is that for that generation, it is also more and more important to have an impact. So they are in a position, and they do a lot, that for them it's more important to do a meaningful work, a meaningful job, or building a business without all the maybe the income that they have earned in the past year. So they are stepping back, and they still have that wisdom. So it's very good to use that. The other thing is, and that is something I really love to share. I love the younger generations. They still have a life before them.
That's why you
They
have me in Female Wave of
Yes,
Change.
they can build businesses. They step into something, and they
Yes,
still have that spirit of let's just do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's okay. But if you're in your 20s and you start a business and it doesn't work, you have a huge opportunity after that to create something new.
absolutely.
If you
Absolutely.
look at the number of businesses that
Mm-hmm.
are really successful, that are still there after 5 years, are created by the younger generation, that
Mm-hmm.
percentage is quite low, you know
Mm.
20-25%. If you look at the older generation, these
Mm-hmm.
percentages get higher. If you
Mm.
look at the 50 plus, the people in their 50s, 50% of the companies become successful. 60 plus, 60% get successful. 70 plus, 70 plus become success. 70% become successful. And why is that? Why is
Yeah,
there a difference? Is because me in my 60s, I feel like I need to be sure of what I'm doing,
mm.
because I cannot, if I fail big time, then I don't have as much time to recover from that failure. So
Absolutely.
I really need to be sure. But
Yeah.
what about if we can combine, the wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
the knowledge, the experience of that older generation with the drive, and let's just do it with the younger
Mm-hmm.
generations, then we can all get those percentages up and really make, well, also these startups more successful than what they have been now. So I love the combination of the spirit of the younger ones
Yeah.
with the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience. Combine it, and we will be able to. In the African saying, if you go alone, you can go fast. If we go
Yes.
together, we can all go further.
Absolutely. I love that. I really love that too. And I love this conversation, Ingun, because it's coming out of a woman who is walking the talk. Now, Ingun, when you compare the world now, because now with COVID, right? So when you compare the world now and before COVID, how do you see the entrepreneurial journey been for you with everything that you do? Because things have had to change. How have you navigated?
Well, things needed to change, and change can be good. It's too bad that we needed a worldwide pandemic to
Yeah.
make us realize that we needed that change. Yeah. So, of course, I mind, and it's terrible what has happened, and that a lot of people got sick and lost their loved ones. That is things that have happened. That is that I cannot even mention how terrible that is for people who have really experienced that,
Yeah.
who've gone through it. the world needed to change. And if I look, for instance, at Female Wave of Change, the thing that we mentioned immediately when the pandemic struck, we said, okay, let's drop everything, see what is happening, and let's act on how we can support on how we can act on what is going on. And it was immediately that we moved everything, not local but global, that we did all kinds of webinars to support women and their families online, to be able to give them that spirit, and move through the fear into hope and resilience. We did meditations to relax, to be able to relax more, to be conscious more, to really, to really live in the moment and see what was happening and act on it. So, but also after a couple of months, we immediately said, okay, now we have an opportunity. We're always talking about changing the future. Now we can change it. What is the direction that we want to change it in? What is it that we want on? We defined 5 topics on health, on education, on environment, on economics, and on humanity.
Yeah.
So we really started working on that. And this morning I shared an article in the Female Way of Change Global Group about what makes someone a great leader in this time. It are those people, not only the ones in politics or in big companies, etc., but it are the people who really sit back, relax, and say, okay, so what is going on? What can I do? What can I do now? Those who are going to share anything that they have at that time. There was this story about, someone who had to close their restaurant, but spreading 400 meals per day, giving it to people because it was needed. And that is something we really feel like if something like this happens, most of the people feel overwhelmed. They feel like, oh, wow, what is happening to me? But the great leaders really step into, okay, so what is happening now? If I look at Move into the Future, that is the company we started in January last year. So that was really 1 month before the whole COVID thing happened. That was not a good moment. But, it was still in a way that we felt like, okay, let's just move forward and we see what we can build this year. And we'll step in the moment. We'll speed things up the minute we can. And that is what we did with the online community is immediately the beginning of this year. We said, okay, now is the time. Let's move forward. So yes, companies have suffered, absolutely. And when you see that things go bad in your company, then it obviously is not the company and the structure that you need in a situation like this. So what a real entrepreneur does at a moment like that, he immediately starts creating, okay, so what can we do? And that is what we saw last year when COVID started. You saw there was here in the Netherlands, for instance, there was this company who normally makes mattresses, mattresses. And the first thing they did was where they were going to make masks. So they said, okay, let's skip what is needed right now. We need masks. Everyone in the world needs masks. So they started making masks. Someone in one of our bigger hospitals here, female leading lady there, and there was a big issue in that hospital. They did not have masks. There was a big issue at that time. So the thing that she did is she cleared a whole part of our hospital and said, okay, beds out, we will need them, but we need sewing machines here, we need materials here, and we need people here who can make our own masks. That is creative thinking. It is about, okay, so what is the situation? So I have to close my restaurant because, this is what they're saying. I have to close my restaurant. And here also, I live in an area with a lot of restaurants. There
Yeah.
have been restaurants closed for most of the time, but others within no time started doing takeaway and things like that. So it is about that entrepreneurial mindset is about creativity. It is about innovation. It is about dealing with the situation as is. It is about living in the moment and finding solutions for the challenges that we're facing. And it's not easy, you know, for each and every entrepreneur. And I do agree, but I also believe that there have been a lot of entrepreneurs, and here also in the Netherlands, you know, there was the government immediately stepping in with all kinds of programs that they were giving money to the entrepreneurs and all kinds of funds. Um, but you know, that is not that's not what you want. That's not the solution. The solution is within you. Is
It's a quick fix. Yeah.
Yes, that is a quick fix, and it keeps you up and running maybe for 1 or 2 months. But then again, you will have to find solutions for the new now.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, that was also the thing that we heard a lot last year. It is about the time after COVID. We're going to talk about the time after COVID, after Corona. There
Yeah.
will always be a COVID.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
is not a time after COVID. There is a time with COVID. And so deal with what you're in the situation that you're in
Yeah.
and see that the world is changing and that you have to act on it.
Yeah. 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 And strategize and pivoting and all that and see, yeah, this is the need now. What can I do? Because sometimes, you know, the things that we put in place, and I had the same experience because some of the things that I do is to organize events. And then suddenly, actually before the lockdown, I was gonna fly to Nairobi, you know, with we had already organized the venue and all those things, people had already registered, and then everything just scrambled. And then you are sitting like,
Yeah.
what is going on here?
Yes.
You have to sit and rethink and strategize and say, okay, this is happening. What can I do? So what did I do? I moved everything online because
Yeah.
why? Everybody's online. We are here now. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about the mindset, Ingun, like you said, and that's
Yes.
a very powerful statement to
Yeah.
say because
Yeah.
we need to navigate. And yeah, things will happen, but how are you dealing with them, and what are you, implementing, and all that. So you've already talked about implementation and strategies, which was actually a question that it was meant I was gonna ask, but you've already shared that, we need to look at the problem, the now, and what can we do. But I want us to talk a bit about the financial, which I know it's also one of the pillars, especially in female wave of change. You've got 5 pillars, education, environment, humanity, financial independence, and what's the other one? What's the fifth
Health.
one?
Health.
We've got 5 pillars in female wave
Yes.
of change: education, finance, environment, humanity,
Health.
and
Health.
health. But
Yeah.
I want us to talk a bit about the financial aspect because that is the emphasis that you have when I listen to you with move into the future, especially for the fifth plus generation. But I want us to come back. I know you include everybody in your organization, but my question will be, because you've dealt with so many different organizations, what are some of the barriers women entrepreneurs face, and how can they be addressed? That's one. The other question that I wanted us to talk about is also, why is financial independence for women so important, Ingo?
Well, let's start. Let's start with the last question. Why is it so important? Um,
Yes.
I think financial independence at all levels of society is important because that will solve a lot of issues that we are facing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for women, if you look at, if women are dependent on their partner, if they don't have that freedom and they are in a bad relationship, for instance, there's no way out and they feel they're stuck and they have to stay. So, there's violence against women, there's all kinds of issues that women have to deal with that that can be solved if they are financially independent. And I know there are still a lot of countries also where women are not allowed to work, or even, you know, becoming stricter in this situation, or women are not allowed to own businesses. That is also an issue. So that's really something that we need to solve. But to be financially independent, to be able to pay for your own, you know, I always say, what is most important in life? It is a roof over your head, it's food on the table, it is education, healthcare, and safety. You need to be safe. So that is something that we need finances to be able to afford that. And whether that is a huge house or a smaller one, it's okay. But we do need that roof over our house, and we need to be able to pay for it ourselves. So that is, for me, to be able to afford, and also for your children and your, you know, if it's not your own children, then the children of your sister or brother, or, you know, your nieces or nephews. We need to have that community feeling again, that family feeling. But we need to be able to afford good education. We need to be able to afford good healthcare, and that is, you know, became even more aware in the last couple of months. So I do think that financial independence and economic stability is important. So we need to be educated. We need to be able to start businesses. That is also very important. And that is, again, also talking about the barriers for women. You know, not all women, not in all cultures, and not all religions, women are allowed to work. Women are allowed to own their businesses. So that is an issue. The other thing is, of course, you know, I'm really a pro entrepreneurship. You know, I love it when people start their own businesses. But funding is an issue, you know, and we can talk about microfinance, but also, you know, if you have bigger plans, where do you get your funding? And worldwide still, it is 2.2% of women and people of color, so not only women, including people of color, so there are also men, 2.2% is for that group. That is crazy, you know? And if you look, so it's so hard. It's not an option to go to a bank and ask for a loan.
No.
You know, it's that is absolutely still an issue, and you see more and more organizations stepping into that part. And that is also, you know, for the 50 plus or even the 60 plus generation. I'm sorry. Imagine yourself that you're 60 plus and that you go to the bank and say, I want to have a loan to start a business. You know,
they look at you and say, you should be retiring.
You should be retiring. You're on your way out.
You're already on your way out. If we
Yeah.
give you money, how are you going to pay us back?
Yeah. So it is something that we really need to work on. Because, again, if you look at, like with the 50 plus generation, the chances they are successful are bigger. Women are more successful in startups, in starting their business, than men. So still, you know, it's this crazy feeling or this crazy thing that even though the numbers are there of success rates, it is still a huge issue to find funding. And well, even for myself, I needed funding for moving to the future, because I really wanted to build my own IT platform. So what I did is I had a look in my own network, and I said, okay, I really need women who support my plan, who really believe in what I'm going to do, and who might be willing to invest in this program. And I found 8 people so far. I'm still looking for 2 men. I'm still looking for 2 men, and I'm going to share that, you know, because I have 8 women. Why 8 women? I really want in this program and move to the future. I want those men involved. But I really believe that you can find those funding. And one of the speakers in our launch event on May 1st on Moving to the Future, that was Paul Tesner from the United States. You know, he was fired at 64 and wanted to start his own business. At age 66, he started his own business. He said, well, you know, again, there was no way that I could find funding for my. So I went to family and friends and found that first investment there to get that company up and going. And that for women is also, that is a way to move forward. But on the other hand, and it is still one of the things on my to-do list, you know, one on things I'm still going to do, is I'm going to create that fund for women so that they can apply
Have
for funding
access. Yeah. Yeah.
to start their own business and to really, yeah, make change happen. So it's that is what is, yeah. So there are barriers,
Yeah.
absolutely. But if there is a barrier, let's together find a way how to move forward.
Solution.
Yeah.
Solution. I love that. And Ingun, it's leading me to my next question to you. You know how much I love you and everything that you do. But one thing I've always had every now and then you talk about is you emphasize a lot on moving from results driven to value driven society. Now, what kind of leadership is needed to lead a value-driven society?
Well, of course, if I look at from a women perspective, we need authentic feminine leadership. You know, it is, and I always emphasize the feminine, especially when I am in my role of president and founder of Female Wave of Change.
Yeah.
I really think that those feminine values, they are based on compassion, on empathy, on respect, on, you know, everything that is a more human approach of what can I do. If you compare that with the more masculine approach, still, you know, especially looking at building companies and in the economy, it's still very much about power and money.
Yeah.
And we have to move away from power and money. That is, what is power? You know, it's power is I associated with oppression. And
Absolutely.
that is something, you know, that cannot be tolerated. Money, of course, money opens doors, but let's spend that money wisely, you know, let's do it on projects that
Funding,
that we
know?
really make that inclusive society and that we involve everyone, that we create a better world for each and every one. It has to be more conscious, more connected, more sustainable, more human, that world. And if we just keep on focusing on bigger, higher, more expensive things like that, that is not going to bring us where we really need to go. So we need that authentic, you know, really coming from who you are, from within, from, you know, from your gut feeling, from your heart. That is something you are also going through that process in the Women Leading in Change program right now in the Female Way of Change. But that is really the way to move forward. And, you know, and this morning I was responding on a post on LinkedIn that Jacinda Ardern, what for me is the ultimate example of authentic feminine leadership.
She's amazing.
You know, and she's number one in the top 50 of the Fortune top 50 leaders, something like that. And I responded there, of course, not just I saw everyone, congratulations, but I respond from the heart that she's that role model and that I do believe that we need to move forward as authentic feminine leaders. And of course, I get responses there that, you know, that are always people against. They are not worth my time. Not.
I call them bullies.
Yeah,
They
bullies,
hide behind their screen and just say nasty things. I call them social media bullies. There are so many nowadays. They're idle.
But you remember, you know, the session that we did in Women Leading in Change on vulnerability, courage, and bravery.
Yeah.
You know, it is real courage to show up as your own vulnerable self, to show up in the arena without knowing the outcome. That is something that is a quote by Brene Brown. And what we're doing, we're not showing up in the arena, especially people like that. Where
Because
are
they are sitting and you are on the stage.
they are sitting on the cheap seats. Remember,
Yes.
they're the audience, they're the spectators, they're not involved in that arena. And really the ones who really need your attention right now are the ones who show up as their vulnerable self in that arena. And I really think that we need more authentic leaders, and whether that is feminine or more human leaders, that can be men, of course. There's more men making that transition into that more human approach, and I really applaud them for going against the more masculine approach.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it is for me is really that more authentic leadership, and that is, you know, moving to the future, but it is that authentic leadership there as well. Great leadership, and that is what I mean with great leadership, is the ones that act on a situation with the pandemic and feel like, wow, let's step back. I do have my business, and but I do see that I need it. I need to have meaning for other people right now, and let's act on it. And that is the leadership that we need right now, moving towards that value-driven society that is based on what we believe is the good
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. Ingun, I just love everything. And, you know, and that's actually why I joined Female Wolf of Change. It's because of your values as the president that you put in this organization. I have not seen any of a kind yet until I stumbled Female Wolf of Change. And the impact that you are creating, you know, in the communities. I love what you said the other day in the global group, that, you know, let us not just focus globally, but let also focus, you know, locally, because the problems, we need to start solving the problems in our own small communities first before we can go bigger and go global. I felt that was so profound. And yes, we need more feminine leaders who can stand on the arena, not seated on the cheap seats. Yeah, we need more, Ingrid, and you are contributing towards that mission. And I want to take this opportunity to applaud you for doing that. And then, what will be your last words to all of us?
What will be my last words? Well, a lot of words have already been said, but be you, and you are enough, and you are ready. You are all ready to step into that arena and be the change.
Yeah, 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 there we have it. Be you, show up, as she said, you know, there is a problem, but what can you do now? You know, not running around. How can you pivot? How can you change, navigate, strategize? That's a leader, you know. And yes, sometimes you will stumble, but yeah, it's part of the journey. Pick up yourself, keep going, and also being vulnerable. It's very beautiful. That is courageous. That is courage. It means you are in the arena, according to Brené Brown, as Ingun has also shared. And yeah, she has shared a lot of things. Ingun, thank you so much. I'm not going to add anything anymore, because you've told us so much that we can all learn from, and, you know, lead in our own capacity based, you know, what we have, what can we do in our communities with what we have, and just show up just as being us. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fauza, thank you so much for, you know, so creating this space to for women to share their stories, because we really need to share our stories, because that inspires and that heals, and that is what we need so desperately right now. So thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Ingun. And for you, my viewers, stay safe. Don't forget to share this conversation. You will just never know who might need a little bit of a push. You know, sometimes when we hear other people's stories, they encourage us. And that is the beauty about Fauza's Diaries. Stay safe. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any other diary in the future. I'll see you guys soon with another inspiring conversation just like this one. Go follow Ingun. Her social media platforms are just right here. If you are in your 50s and you want to be plugged in, there is the link below this conversation. Talk to her. She is one of the most accommodating women I have met so far. Stay safe and see you soon.